It's a Monday night breaking the news, and this one is coming in hot because when we left you Friday night, it seemed like the tides were turning in the Democrats' favor in this shutdown fiasco and that they were going to get what they want. Well, you wake up on Monday morning and that is not the case. To join me now, Republican strategist and my friend Amy Fredrickson. This is such a fast moving story. She's in her car. Amy.
I don't want to miss it.
Yeah. So, Amy, walk us through this from a kind of a bipartisan lens. How does Democrats are holding out on this shutdown because they want subsidies on the Affordable Care Act that are set to expire January 1. They said nothing is coming in between these subsidies and getting this government open. And now the deal they struck doesn't even address the subsidies. What's the deal?
It's fascinating to me. And maybe we'll learn in the next day or two what the Democrats got. But, when we talked, last week and after the election, right, it seemed like certainly the election had consequences. The Republicans did not fare well. Even the President Trump said this has to do with the shutdown. People don't like it. And I have always said I went through the longest state shutdown as the leader. The party in power is the party that tends to get the blame. People just don't want to understand. They don't want to know about caucuses and all the nuances of votes. They just know that things are not getting done. And at a federal level, Republicans in charge of the House, the Senate, and they have the presidency. And so it was just inordinately being put on Republican shoulders. And it was getting much hotter. Because as SNAP benefits ran out, as people, particularly seniors and kids, were struggling to find, to make, put food on the table, as their parents were struggling, as families were. And then what was happening at the airport last week, it was announced 10% reduction in flights. Airlines were starting to cancel 1,700 over the weekend. The political pressure was building, seemingly, on Republicans. And so it is curious to me what the Democrats in the Senate, who held out for the longest, this was the longest shutdown in U.S. history, and the one thing that they were standing on doesn't appear to be part of the deal. Or if it is, they're really not communicating that. And so it appears like everybody just sort of wanted to see what happened with this election, and then they cut the deal they were always going to cut. I'm not, it's very, that's a little murky to me, Jana. And I can understand where Democrats are kind of like, what did we hold out for?
Yeah, what was this 40 days? What was all this pain really for? And that's been the message in political reporting that I've been, tuned into. That's what our U.S. senators, Senator Tina Smith, Senator Amy Klobuchar, big mad, saying, what in the heck? We did all of this for what? For nothing? For a pinky promise that the ACA subsidies would be addressed in December, which is what's coming from Republican leadership. At least John Thune is saying, hey, we're going to talk about it and vote on it. But the Republicans, of course, don't like Obamacare. So they're like, hell no. It just doesn't make any sense.
Right. An agreement for a vote is nothing. You could have a vote tomorrow. You could have a vote. It doesn't matter. There's no deal. And now your leverage is gone. Right. I don't know. It's just very strange. Very strange end to it. Not how I saw it ending. I thought they were going to have to do something with the scale, something with the timeline. I thought there was going to have to be an extension, but with certain parameters.
Yeah.
But no.
And what's even crazier about it
is correct.
What's crazy to me is, so as you address the vote, what's that going to really do? I guess we'll see. And we're stressing that because that was the Democrats' one big thing, is the subsidies for the ACA, because they're going to go double, maybe triple for some people come January 1st. So that's going to happen. And the ACA subsidies don't pick parties. There are Republicans that get them out in America, and there are Democrats that get them out in America. So they're going to hit these people if no deal is reached in December over just that one issue. And then we'll look at how it feels to those voters to pay that much more for health care. Then they get to decide, really, right? Like, which party do we want in power as a result of this thing that actually happens to them? Because it hasn't totally happened yet.
Well, and that's what we saw a little bit right with this election. Affordability, and whether it's healthcare, whether it's food, whether it's transportation costs, that's the pocketbook issues obviously are number one for voters. And so if people's premiums or costs for healthcare double or go up, even if they go up 25%, that is a tremendous burden for a lot of families in a time where they're already paying more at the grocery store, already paying more at the gas pump. And so the theme of this election is likely to be affordability, and no deal and an increase in healthcare for whatever the reason is going to impact. Now, I guess Democrats are again banking on, well, from an election standpoint, we're going to fight for this. If you don't want to give it to us, you're going to bear the brunt of that faction at the polls. And maybe that's how they're calculating it. But seems like a risk to me.
Do you think that the Republican Party, openly has not liked the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, right? It's done under President Barack Obama. So do the Republicans have a health care plan that can replace it?
Well, this is always the question, correct? And I also do not love the ACA. I don't love our existing healthcare system. I think it leaves so many people out in the cold. I think that it is expensive. I think there's all kinds of things. I think ACA was somewhat of a fix. I'd much rather see a much more of an open market and clear pricing. I don't understand why I go to the doctor or I call the doctor and I ask them, what does it cost to have, whatever medical procedure, and no one can tell you, because the answer is it all depends on a million different factors, and I can never know what other things do we get and buy that where we get it, and then after the fact we find out how much it costs. Just nothing. So the whole system is just a disaster. I don't think single payer is the answer, but we just to me to have this many bright minds on an issue that everyone agrees is broken, not be able to come up with solutions, I don't understand. But again, everyone's got to come to the table with well-intentioned, let's get something done. Right. They've tried it. It tends to get very partisan. And in the meantime, it's the American people that, are not getting the care, are, busting the budgets on healthcare. Businesses, by the way. Ooh. Oh my goodness. Small business. I've got one. The cost of healthcare, one of the number one cost drivers for me every single month, without a doubt, to make sure that my employees are taken care of.
Right. So small business owners that have to pay health care. I work for a large corporation. They pay for our health care. I'm grateful, but those costs are going up. And then the ACA for that subsidized market, that's going up. It's going up everywhere. And to your point, sure would be nice if all the smart minds leave your party at the door, figure it out. All right, let's turn the page.
Help Republicans and Democrats to do that. Why not?
Get them you know what? You're going to have to get them in your car, and we're just going to go for a drive, and you settle it in there.
We're going all the way. We're going to the Canadian border if we need to, if you all can solve this.
Probably. All right, let's switch back to state politics. We talked to you last week when House Speaker Lisa Damas said she was going to run on the Republican ticket. That was the person you thought was the best bet for the party. This morning, she announces her running mate, the first, I think, to do so, to pick an LTG candidate. And she picks Ryan Wilson, who could be a nice guy. I've never heard of him. I know he ran for state auditor. He's a safe pick, would you say? And is that the right way to go? Because he doesn't bring a lot of name recognition.
He doesn't. So, but I think, yes, he's definitely a safe pick. So first of all, it's interesting announcing this soon. Typically, and the conventions don't take place till next May, typically candidates tend to run a running mate to sort of get some traction closer to the convention. Mm-hmm. That's not the case here. And I think it's because of what Ryan Wilson brings to the ticket. So first of all, there's some geographic diversity he brings. He's from the suburbs. He's a nice guy. He did run for state auditor. I'm not a fan of the state auditor's office, but I thought he ran a great race. He's smart. So I think the first thing that I'm guessing the Speaker Dameth looked at is, one, could he do the job of governor if I were the governor and I couldn't do the job for a while? So yes. Second of all, he comes from the suburbs. She is a greater Minnesota. She's Cold Spring, sort of west of St. Cloud area. He's got a lovely family. He has run for state auditor, and in that way, has a couple things. He knows some of the major donors, and he can make an ask. He did raise some money. He knows those delegates, and we talked about those delegates and the endorsement process and how important that still is for Republicans. So I think with this early pick, she's also signaling, hey, delegates, I see you. And she's going to, in part, rely on her lieutenant governor pick to run around the state, talking to delegates and garnering support for that endorsement. I think that's a big part of this early in. And also, he barely lost statewide. Okay. He lost, but he lost by 0.34%, less than 0.5% in a year when our governor's candidate lost by 8%. So he definitely can also say to folks, look, I've ran and I didn't pull it off, but I got closer than any Republican candidate has in almost 20 years. So
that makes sense.
That's the point. Yeah, we talked about, will the delegates care about winning?
Yeah,
I think they do care about winning this year.
Okay.
And I think he can have that message. Now,
all right.
So all of those things he brings.
All right. We pretend you are now the advisor to the sitting governor, Tim Walz, and you are making the audible to Governor Walz on who his lieutenant governor candidate should be. Who do you pick?
Ooh, wow. Well, there's a variety of state reps that I like. I've heard some names. I've heard Sheriff DeWanna Witt, which is an interesting sort of law and order pick. So that might be something that I might do. And you've got, Tim Walz still sort of has his greater Minnesota cred. And so you've got someone from Minneapolis, Hennepin County area. I've heard former state senator Melissa Franzen. She also, for a time, ran government relations at the University of Minnesota. She's a, really she's a very attractive candidate. She's smart, served in the Senate for many years, has a lot of like kind of bipartisan cred. So I think that's a possible pick. And also there's also just like, he picked a very like young, new to the legislature at the time, a candidate in his original lieutenant governor, Peggy Flanagan. And so, there are probably 10 or 15, kind of exciting new members of the House and the Senate that the governor could also choose from in the same sort of vein as his original pick of Lieutenant Governor Flanagan.
None of those are off the rails picks, so I'll let you have the safe one. I heard after the upset win of Kali Her in St. Paul for mayor, I've heard Melvin Carter tossed around. But in my political opinion, Melvin Carter's kind of similar in ideology to the governor. So is there much differentiation there?
Right. I think that would be I also heard that name, and I kind of wonder about that. I also think, there's going to have to be, for Mayor Carter, sort of some decisions around what happened with that race. He was incredibly popular, won by over 60%, just a few short years ago when he ran for mayor, and sort of like, what happened. He also might be looking to do private sector work, right? Like, yeah. Maybe he's kind of done with politics for a while. Sometimes it's nice to go and have a break and, live in the real world for a time.
Figure out what the price of milk is. Yeah, that's a true story.
I bought a bowling alley, so all kinds of things can happen.
You know what? It's what we like about Amy Frederickson, not Amy Koch, just newly married. She's got a bowling alley. She pays taxes. She knows what it's like to pay for health care. She calls us from the car.
Well, I did have a bowling alley. Now I've got.
You did have a bowling. Yeah. Well,
I did have a bowling alley. After I left the legislature, I bought a bowling alley.
All right, advice to people getting out of politics: buy a bowling alley. It'll set you free.
No, never buy a bar in a bowling alley. That's the best advice I can give.
Amy, thanks for checking in with us. You're the best.
Thanks, Anna.
We'll see you next time.
Appreciate you.
All right, appreciate you. That's all for us on this wacky, wild Monday in politics on Breaking the News Plus. We'll see you next time. Take care.